This video from Scholar Leaders is about how to write a strong thesis statement and roadmap at the PhD level. Let's start by asking what the purpose of a thesis statement is. To define a strong thesis statement, what is the thesis statement's role? A thesis statement does two things. First of all, it states your argument. Whatever you're going to claim about what you will analyze, your main idea, your main claim. Second, it lays out a roadmap that specifies how you will back up your argument. So the argument and the roadmap are the two aspects of the thesis statement. Let's notice some key facets of this purpose. First of all, the thesis statement should be brief, as in it should only take 1 to 2 sentences. Second, the thesis statement should present your analysis in a nutshell. What is your claim about your material? Third, the thesis statement should answer your research question, and probably it will do that by laying out your claim. Fourth, the thesis statement should come at the end of your introduction. It should be the last couple of sentences before the first body section. This will enable your reader to recognize it and to rest on it for a moment before they dive into your analysis. Finally, the thesis statement should be a touchstone for your reader throughout your writing, whether that's the whole dissertation, a single chapter, or a conference paper. It should repeat at key points throughout your writing so that your reader will remember it. It might feel a little unnatural or forced to repeat the thesis statement this way, but it truly will help to guide your reader through your writing and to help them remember what your main claim is. On the other hand, a thesis statement should not summarize what others think. It's your time to shine. It's your time to state your argument. It also should not summarize your material itself. It should not be a question. Although, as we mentioned before, it might answer your research question. And although you might be tempted to phrase it as a question, your research question and your thesis statement are not the same thing. Your thesis statement should be a statement. Think about thesis statements in your work as intersecting. Your whole dissertation will have a thesis statement, but each chapter will also have its own thesis statement that helps to support the dissertation's overall claim. And then within each chapter, each main section should have a thesis statement that guides that section. And again, that ultimately serves to build the chapters and the dissertation's arguments. So think of the thesis statements as intersecting pieces at the section level, the chapter level, and the dissertation level. Each thesis statement should buttress the others, should fit in with the others, and repeat at key moments, again, the ends and beginnings of sections, so that your reader remembers it. In addition to the main claim that you make, the roadmap is very important as part of your thesis statement. The roadmap should guide your reader through the journey of your analysis. To that end, it should state the 3 to 4 points that you will use to back up your argument. And it should do so in specific, concrete language. Again, your whole dissertation will have a roadmap. That could be a list of your chapters. Each chapter will have a roadmap. That probably will be the list of your sections. And then each section will have a roadmap, whatever key analytical points that section covers. A couple of other things we should note about the thesis statement and roadmap. Strong thesis statements stake out a clear position with which someone could disagree. That might seem risky at first, but the whole point of writing a dissertation, of pursuing scholarship, is to argue for your own new claim. The work of breaking new ground will likely lead to disagreement, but also hopefully to productive conversation. So a strong thesis statement will provoke conversation and discussion. It will go beyond observation to nudge your reader to ask questions like, really? Why? How? And then, of course, your analysis in the chapter or section or dissertation will go on to answer those questions. The thesis statement is the argument, the point, the position that you take that you will then support. As you can tell, it's hard to talk about this in abstract, so let's look at an example. Let's say that I want to write a paper about Pentecostalism in my native country. I've conducted interviews with pastors and congregants. I've read church archives. I've explored the history of Pentecostalism globally. I've done my literature review. Now it's time for me to sit down and write the paper. A weak first draft might say something like this: Pentecostalism is growing in Hibernia. This is weak because although it specifies a subject and a place, and it makes a claim, it's still not very specific. The claim is very general. A reader might ask, well, to what extent is Pentecostalism growing? How is it growing? Why do you think it's growing? As a side note, of course, you want your thesis statement to provoke questions, but you want those questions to be a little more interesting than this. And as another side note, how and why questions are some of the best you can be asking as a PhD student. They will take your work beyond mere summary and into original analysis. So keep looking for how and why questions and exploring them. But back to the thesis statement. Of course, you will have noticed that this version does not give a roadmap either. So its claim is vague, and it doesn't state the specific points that the paper will follow to back up the claim. So the statement needs to be refined, and it needs to be accompanied by a roadmap. Perhaps the thesis statement becomes a question in its next iteration. Why has the Hibernian Pentecostal movement grown from its roots in US-based Pentecostalism to dominate Christianity in Hibernia? This is better, but it's a question, not a statement, and it's still missing a roadmap. So let's try turning it into a statement. The Hibernian Pentecostal movement has been attracting thousands of new followers because of its emphasis on new doctrinal distinctives different from those in US-based Pentecostalism. Okay, so this version is obviously better because it's more specific. We have thousands of new followers rather than simply growing. And we have a possible answer as to why Pentecostalism is growing. Doctrinal distinctives that contrast with US-based Pentecostalism. But this version still doesn't have a roadmap, and doctrinal distinctives is kind of vague. The reader doesn't know what I mean by those. They could include infant baptism, six-day creation, universal salvation, amillennialism, all kinds of things. So let's try revising again. The Hibernian Pentecostal movement is attracting thousands of new followers because it is emphasizing national spiritual political transformation and public acts of mercy, as opposed to the classic US Pentecostal focus on speaking in tongues, individual evangelism, and personal empowerment. Okay, this is stronger because it's far more specific. Now we have particular items instead of just doctrinal distinctives. And this version draws a clear contrast between one version of Pentecostalism and the other. but we're still missing a roadmap. What stages of argumentation will this thesis statement need to follow? What path will the reader go down as I explore these ideas? So let's revise one more time. The Hibernian Pentecostal movement is attracting thousands of new followers because it is emphasizing national spiritual political transformation and public acts of mercy, in surprising contrast to the classic US Pentecostal focus on speaking in tongues, individual evangelism, and personal empowerment. This chapter will focus on HPM's call for national spiritual political transformation by exploring its theological roots in Amos 4-6, how it is expressed from HPM pulpits, and how HPM congregants are pursuing this transformation in their daily lives, with a brief exploration of the gap between Amos 4-6 and congregants' practices. So why is this version strong? Well, it offers a roadmap: theology in Amos, preaching, and living. And it does so in clear, specific terms. And it makes a claim with which someone could definitely argue. It's going to start a conversation, especially in that last bit where it suggests that we might see some problems with HPM practices, perhaps. But that's a good thing. It gets the reader thinking and confronts the reader with why they should care about this research. Here we have a clear example of how theology is, or is not, being preached and lived, a topic that will spark your reader's interest, even if they're not part of the Pentecostal church. And lest we be concerned about offending the Pentecostal church, we can, of course, use more diplomatic language in the actual chapter itself. So this thesis statement accomplishes its purpose. It addresses the how and why questions. It sets forth an argument and a path by which to pursue that argument. It's risky, but that's the work of a good scholar. To pack the biggest punch, the thesis statement and roadmap should be the last 2 to 3 sentences of your introduction, as a final reminder. Again, they should come at the end of the last paragraph of the introduction, right before the first body section, so that they'll catch your reader's attention. You want to spark those how and why questions for your reader before you then go on to demonstrate your prowess as a theologian by answering those questions in your analysis. Thanks for listening to this video. We hope it's helpful for you.